The auctioneer's gavel struck wood as men waved crumpled bills in the air, bidding on a young black woman's virtue like she was livestock at market. Serafina Blackwood stood on the makeshift stage in Dusty Pete's saloon, her chin raised despite the terror coursing through her veins. The crowd pressed forward, their faces flushed with whiskey and greed. Pete banged his gavel again, sweat beading on his forehead. The Crane brothers stood near the back wall, arms crossed, watching their investment with cold eyes. Pete owed them more money than most men saw in a lifetime. Tonight, Cira would pay his debt. Bull Morrison, the meanest rancher in 3 counties, raised his hand. His voice cut through the smoke-filled room like a blade. 300. The crowd murmured approval. Bull had a reputation for breaking things: horses, men, women. Cira's eyes darted to the exits, all blocked by Pete's men. Her hands trembled, but she kept them steady at her sides. She had survived 22 years in this frontier town. She would survive this too. 350, called another voice. The bidding continued. Each number hammered against Cira's chest like a physical blow. She thought of her parents, dead these 6 years. They had died believing their daughter would be free. Bull raised his hand again. 400. Final offer. The room fell quiet. $400 was a fortune. Pete's eyes gleamed as he prepared to bring down his gavel. Then a voice spoke. From the shadows near the bar, quiet, steady. $500. Every head turned. A man stepped into the lamplight. Tall and lean, with dark hair that caught Cherokee heritage in its waves. Scars marked his hands and face like a map of old battles. He carried a leather pouch that clinked with gold coins. Pete's jaw dropped. The Crane brothers exchanged glances. Bull Morrison's face darkened. Who the devil are you? The stranger ignored him. His gray eyes found Cira's across the room. Something passed between them, not desire. Something else. Something that made her breath catch. 500, he repeated. Pete recovered first. The gavel rose in his shaking hand. Sold to the gentleman in black. The crowd began to disperse, grumbling about the stranger who had outbid them all. Bull Morrison pushed through the crowd, his face twisted with rage. This ain't over, he snarled at the stranger. The scarred man said nothing. Bull stormed out, slamming the saloon doors behind him. Pete rubbed his hands together as he approached. Now then, mister. About payment. The stranger opened his leather pouch. Gold coins spilled across the bar in a waterfall of light. Pete's eyes widened. Even the Crane brothers leaned forward. Count it, the stranger said. Pete's fingers flew over the coins. $500 exactly. More money than the saloon made in 6 months. The stranger walked to the stage where Cira still stood frozen. The room watched in silence. He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded paper and an iron key. Cira flinched as he approached. Every muscle in her body prepared to fight or run, but he stopped 3 feet away. Close enough to speak quietly. Far enough to let her breathe. He held out the paper and key. Ranch deed, he said. 20 acres north of town. Horses tied outside. Black mare with white socks. Cira stared at the objects in his outstretched hand. Her mind struggled to understand. What's the catch? No catch. Ranch is yours. Go wherever you want. The room erupted in confused murmurs. Pete stepped forward, his face red. Now wait just a minute. That ain't how this works. The stranger's hand moved to his. Gun belt. Not drawing, just resting there. Pete took a step back. I paid your price, the stranger said. Transaction's complete. Cira looked into his eyes. They held no deception, no hidden hunger. Just a quiet sadness that matched something deep in her own chest. She took the deed and key. Her fingers brushed his for an instant. His skin was rough with calluses. Working man's hands. Why? She whispered. Because you deserve a choice. The words hit her like lightning. In 22 years, no one had ever given her a choice about anything. Pete sputtered protests, but the Crane brothers had already collected their payment. They walked past Sierra. Toward the door, the older brother paused beside her. Don't think this makes you free, girl. Debts have a way of following people. Then they were gone. The stranger tipped his hat to Sierra. Mare's fast, steady. She'll carry you far as you want to go. He turned toward the door. Wait, Sierra called. What's your name? He paused without turning around. Folks call me Ghost. Then he walked out into the night, leaving Sierra standing on the stage with a deed to freedom in her shaking hands. The saloon emptied quickly. Only Pete remained, slumped over the bar, staring at his empty bottle. Sierra climbed down from the stage. Each step felt like walking on air. She had expected to be dragged away in chains. Instead, she held papers that promised land, freedom. She moved toward the door, but Pete's voice stopped her. You think this is over? You think some stranger makes you free? Sierra turned. Pete's eyes blazed with fury and desperation. I still got papers on you, legal documents. You run, I'll send the law after you. Bring you back in shackles. Fear twisted in Sierra's stomach. Pete was right. He had kept her bound with forged documents for years. One mysterious cowboy couldn't change that. But the deed felt solid in her hand, real. She walked out into the night air. The black mare stood tied to the hitching post, exactly as Ghost had promised. The horse nickered softly when Sierra approached. Sierra untied the reins with shaking fingers. She had never owned anything in her life. Now she owned a horse and 20 acres of land. The mare was beautiful, strong, built for distance. Sierra climbed into the saddle. The leather creaked beneath her weight. For the first time in years, she sat higher than the men around her. She could ride to the ranch Ghost had given her. Or she could ride to the territorial capital and file papers to prove her freedom. The choice was hers. The mare danced beneath her, eager to run. Sierra gathered the reins and made her decision. She would ride to the capital. She would fight Pete's forged documents with real law. And if that mysterious cowboy had truly given her freedom, she would find a way to thank him. The mare's hooves struck dirt as they rode into the darkness. Behind them, Copper Ridge grew smaller with each stride. For the first time in her life, Serafina Blackwood was riding toward something instead of running away. Dawn painted the sky copper as Sierra pushed the mare through broken country toward the territorial capital. The horse's breath clouded in the cold air. Behind them, Copper Ridge had vanished into morning mist. The mare stumbled on loose shale. Sierra steadied her with gentle hands. The animal was strong but had been ridden hard recently. Sweat marks stained the saddle blanket. Sierra pulled the ranch deed from her coat. The paper crackled in the wind. 20 acres of land with her name written in careful script. She had never seen her name on legal papers before. But Pete's words echoed in her mind. Legal documents. He had kept her bound with forged papers for 6 years. One deed might not be enough to break those chains. The sun climbed higher. Sierra let the mare drink from a narrow creek while she studied the horizon. No sign of pursuit yet. But Pete would come. He always came. She remounted and urged the mare forward. The territorial capital lay 2 days hard riding through country that belonged to no law but the gun. By noon the mare was favoring her left front hoof. Sierra dismounted and lifted the leg. A stone had wedged between the shoe and frog. She worked it free with her fingernails, but the damage was done. The mare would need rest. Sierra scanned the landscape. Red rock and sagebrush stretched to the mountains. No town. No shelter, no help. She walked the mare slowly, looking for shade. The sun beat down without mercy. Her water was running low. Then she heard hoofbeats. 3 riders emerged from a wash 50 yards ahead. They wore the rough clothes of bounty hunters, Pete's men. Sierra's hand moved to the small knife at her belt, useless against 3 armed men, but it was all she had. The riders spread out as they approached. Their leader was a scarred man named Briggs who did Pete's dirty work for whiskey money. "Well now," Briggs called. "Looks like Pete's property got herself lost." Sierra said nothing. The mare shifted beneath her, sensing danger. "Pete's offering good money to bring you back, dead or alive," he said. "Though I reckon he'd prefer you breathing." The other 2 riders moved to flank her. Sierra calculated distances. The wash was 30 yards away. If she could reach it, she might lose them in the rocks. But the mare was lame. She would never make it. Briggs urged his horse closer. "Now don't make this harder than it needs to be, girl. You come quiet, we'll treat you decent. You run, well." He left the threat hanging in the desert air. Sierra gathered the reins. She would run anyway. Better to die free than live in chains. A rifle shot cracked across the canyon. Briggs jerked. In his saddle. His hat flew off his head, a bullet hole through the crown. "Next one won't miss." The voice came from the rocks above. Ghost stepped into view, his rifle trained on Briggs. He wore the same black clothes, but now Sierra could see the quality of the fabric. Expensive, not cowboy clothes at all. "You boys lost?" Ghost asked. Briggs recovered his composure. His hand moved toward his gun. "This ain't your business, stranger. Pete's got legal claim on that girl. Legal claim expired 6 years ago when her parents' debt was paid." The words hit Sierra like cold water. Ghost knew about her parents' debt. He knew details that only someone with access to legal records would know. Who was this man? "Pete's got papers," Briggs said. "Pete's got forgeries." Ghost's rifle never wavered. "Real papers are filed in the territorial capital. Witnessed and sealed." Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. If Ghost was telling the truth, she had been free for years. Pete had kept her enslaved with lies. Briggs looked uncertain. His 2 companions shifted nervously in their saddles. "Even if that's true," Briggs said, "you're just one man." "We're 3, Ghost smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "I count different." More riders appeared on the canyon rim. 6 men with rifles. They wore the blue uniforms of territorial marshals. Briggs went pale. He raised his hand slowly. "This ain't over," he said. "Yes, it is." The marshals escorted Briggs and his men away. Ghost climbed down from the rocks, leading his horse. Sierra watched him approach. Her emotions churned. Between gratitude and suspicion, he had saved her life. But he knew too much about her past. "How did you know?" she asked. "Know what?" "About my parents' debt. About the papers." Ghost checked the mare's injured hoof. His hands were gentle with the animal. "Did some research after I heard about Pete's auction. Took a ride to the capital. Found the original documents." "Why?" He looked up at her. Those gray eyes held secrets deep as winter. "Because no one should be enslaved by lies." Sierra dismounted. The desert sun beat down on them both, but she felt cold inside. "You've been planning this, watching me, following me." "Yes." The simple admission hit harder than any lie would have. "Why?" she demanded. "What do you want from me?" Ghost stood slowly. He was taller than she had realized, broader through the shoulders. But he kept his distance, hands visible and empty. "Your father saved someone I cared about. Long time ago. Different place." "That doesn't answer my question." "Yes, it does." They stared at each other across 3 feet of desert ground. The wind stirred dust between them. "I don't need your protection," Sarah said. "I know. I don't need your charity." "I know that too. Then what do you want?" Ghost gathered his horse's reins. When he spoke, his voice was quiet as settling dust. "To see you get what you deserve. A choice. A chance." He swung into the saddle. Mare needs rest. There's a way. Station 5 miles east. Water and shade. You're not coming with me. It wasn't a question. Not unless you want me to. Sira studied his face. The scars told stories of old violence. But his eyes held no threat. No demand. Only that quiet sadness she had noticed in the saloon. I can take care of myself, she said. I know. He turned his horse toward the canyon. Mouth, ghost. He paused without looking back. Thank you. A nod. Then he was riding away, disappearing into the broken landscape that had hidden him so well. Sira watched until he was gone. Then she led the limping Mare toward the way station, her mind churning with questions. Who was Ghost really? How had he summoned territorial marshals so quickly? And why did he know so much about her family's history? The Mare nickered softly, reminding her of more immediate concerns. Water, rest, the long road to the capital still ahead. But now she carried something she had never possessed before. Hope, real hope, built on legal documents instead of wishful thinking. The way station appeared as promised. A weathered building beside a windmill and stock tank. Sira led the Mare to water and found shade beneath a ramada. As the horse drank, Sira pulled out the ranch deed again. The paper felt different now. Not just a stranger's charity, but a doorway to a future she could choose. The wind carried dust and the scent of distant rain. Change was coming to this hard country. And for the first time in her life, Serafina Blackwood was ready for it. The territorial capital sprawled along the river bottom like scattered bones. Sira guided the Mare down the dusty main street, past saloons and supply stores, and the whitewashed courthouse that rose 3 stories above everything else. 2 days of hard riding had brought her here. The Mare's lameness had healed, but both horse and rider bore the dust of difficult country. Sira tied the Mare outside the courthouse and climbed the steps. Her boots echoed in the marble hallway. She had never been inside a government building before. The walls seemed to press down with the weight of law and order. The clerk's office smelled of ink and old paper. A thin man with wire spectacles looked up from his ledger. Help you. I need to file papers. Proof of freedom. The clerk's eyes traveled over her worn dress and dusty skin. His expression cooled. What kind of papers? Sira placed the ranch deed on his desk. The man examined it with professional interest. This is a valid deed, but it doesn't prove anything about your legal status. My parents paid their debts 6 years ago. I need the original documents. The clerk sat down. His pen. His face showed the careful neutrality of a man who dealt with uncomfortable situations daily. Name? Serafina Blackwood. Parents were Samuel and Ruth Blackwood. The clerk disappeared into the back room. Sira heard the sound of filing. Cabinets opening and closing. Minutes passed. When he returned, his face was grim. I'm sorry. There was a fire in the records building last month. Many documents from that period were destroyed. The words hit Sira like physical blows. She gripped the edge of the desk to steady herself. All of them? I'm afraid so. The section containing debt resolution papers from 6 years ago is completely gone. Sira stared at the floor. Without those papers, Pete's forged documents stood unopposed. She was legally still his property. Is there anything else I can do? The clerk looked uncomfortable. You might try the territorial attorney's office. Sometimes they keep copies of important cases. Sira walked back into the afternoon heat. The sun felt harsh after the cool courthouse. She stood on the steps, watching wagons roll past, while her future crumbled in her hands. A familiar voice spoke behind her. Didn't go well. She turned. Ghost sat on a bench in the courthouse shade, his hat pulled low. He wore the same black clothes, but they looked expensive in the better light. Too expensive for a simple cowboy. You followed me. I was already here. Sira walked down the steps. Her legs felt unsteady. The papers are gone. Destroyed in a fire. Ghost nodded. He had expected this. Convenient timing. You think someone burned them on purpose? I think a lot of things happen for reasons. Sarah sat on the bench beside him. The shade felt good after the harsh sun. She noticed his hands again. Calloused from work, but the nails were clean. His boots were worn but well made. What are you not telling me? She asked. Ghost was quiet for a long moment. A freight wagon rumbled past, stirring dust that settled on everything. I have contacts in the legal community. People who might remember your parents' case. Why would they help? Because some folks believe in justice. Sarah studied his profile. The scars on his face told stories of violence, but his voice carried education, breeding. He spoke like a man accustomed to being heard. Who are you really? Ghost stood and adjusted his hat. Someone who wants to help. They walked to the territorial attorney's office together. The building was smaller than the courthouse but newer. A painted sign proclaimed, "Justice under law," in gold letters. The attorney was a middle-aged man named Harrison with kind eyes and ink-stained fingers. He listened to Sarah's story with attention that surprised her. Blackwood, he mused. I remember that case. Your father was an honest man. Hope fluttered in Sarah's chest. Do you have records? Harrison's face fell. I'm sorry. My files from that period were also destroyed in the fire. The hope died as quickly as it had come. However, Harrison continued, there might be another way. He turned to Ghost, who had remained silent during the conversation. Judge Ravencrest handled many debt cases from that era. He might remember the details. Something flickered across Ghost's face, too quick to read. Where would we find the judge? Sarah asked. His office is on the 3rd floor of the courthouse. But I should warn you. Harrison lowered his voice. The judge has a reputation for being difficult with certain types of cases. Sarah understood his meaning. Judges who were difficult with certain types of cases rarely ruled in favor of people who looked like her. They left Harrison's office and walked back toward the courthouse. The afternoon was growing late. Shadows stretched long across the dusty street. You don't have to do this, Ghost said. Yes, I do. The judge might not be sympathetic. Then I'll make him sympathetic. Ghost stopped walking. When Sarah turned to face him, his expression was troubled. There are things you don't understand. About this town, about the people in power. Then explain them to me. Ghost looked toward the courthouse. The building cast long shadows in the dying light. Some debts run deeper than money. Some people have reasons for keeping the past buried. What does that mean? It means be careful who you trust. They climbed the courthouse steps again. The marble felt cold beneath Sarah's feet. On the 3rd floor, a brass nameplate read Judge Thaddeus Ravencrest, Territorial Court. The outer office was empty except for a clerk who looked up from his paperwork with bored eyes. Judge is in session. Court adjourns at 5. Sarah checked the clock on the wall. 4:30. We'll wait. They sat on hard wooden chairs outside the courtroom. Through the frosted glass door, Sarah could hear the murmur of legal proceedings. Ghost sat very still beside her, his hands resting on his knees. At exactly 5 o'clock, the courtroom doors opened. People filed out talking in low voices. Finally, a tall man in black robes emerged. Judge Ravencrest had silver hair and sharp features. His eyes were gray. The same gray as Ghost's eyes. Sarah felt Ghost tense beside her. The judge noticed them waiting and paused. Can I help? You? Sarah stood. Your Honor, I need information about a case from 6 years ago, the Blackwood debt resolution. The judge's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. I handle many cases. I don't recall the specifics. My parents were Samuel and Ruth Blackwood. They paid their debts to Pete Morrison before they died. Now the judge looked directly at Ghost. The two men stared at each other across the marble hallway. Recognition passed between them, heavy with unspoken history. "I'm afraid I can't help you," the judge said. "Good day." He walked toward his private office. "Please," Sierra called after him. "I just need the truth." The judge stopped but didn't turn around. Truth is a luxury some people can't afford. Then he was gone, leaving Sierra and Ghost alone in the empty hallway. Sierra turned to Ghost. His face had gone pale beneath the tan. "You know him?" Ghost stood slowly. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Yes." "How?" Ghost walked to the window that overlooked the street. The sun was setting, painting everything red. "He's my father." The words hung in the wind. Air between them. Sierra felt the ground shift beneath her feet. "Your father?" "Yes." "Then why won't he help?" Ghost turned from the window. The dying light cast shadows across his scarred face. "Because he's the one who ordered the files burned." The revelation struck Sierra like lightning across clear sky. She stared at Ghost in the courthouse hallway, her world tilting on its axis. "Your father destroyed the papers that would prove." "My freedom." Ghost's hands clenched at his sides. The gray eyes that matched the judge's held years of buried pain. "Yes. And you knew this when you bought me at that auction." "I suspected." Sierra stepped back. The marble floor felt unsteady beneath her feet. "You've been lying to me from the beginning." "No." Ghost's voice cracked. "I never lied. You just didn't tell the truth." She turned toward the stairs. Her boots echoed in the empty hallway. Ghost followed. "Sierra, wait." "Don't." She whirled to face him. "Don't you dare speak my name. You don't have the right." They stood 3 feet apart in the dying light from the tall windows. Dust motes danced between them. "Let me explain." "Explain what?" "That you're the judge's son, that you knew he was corrupt, that everything you've done was built on lies." Ghost removed his hat. His dark hair fell across his forehead, making him look younger, more vulnerable. "My name is Tobias Blackwood Ravencrest." The name hit Sierra like a physical blow. She gripped the stair railing to steady herself. "Blackwood. My mother was Cherokee. Her name was Morning Star Blackwood. She took your father's name when he saved her life." The courthouse spun around Sierra. She sat down hard on the marble steps. "My father saved your mother during the cavalry raids 15 years ago. Your father hid her in his root cellar for 3 days while soldiers searched the valley." Sarah's mind reeled. Her father had never spoken of this, never mentioned saving anyone's life. "If she was your mother, then you're half Cherokee, half white. Son of a judge who thinks his reputation matters more than justice." Ghost sat on the step below her, close enough to talk quietly, far enough to let her breathe. "Your father saved my mother's life. She married the judge because it was the only way to protect me from men who kill mixed-blood children." The pieces fell into place. Ghost's expensive education, his knowledge of legal procedures, his ability to summon territorial marshals. "You've been looking for my family for years. I wanted to thank your father, to repay the debt. But he was already dead." "Yes, by the time I found the records, your parents had been gone for 3 years. Sarah stared at the courthouse floor. The weight of understanding pressed down on her shoulders. "So you decided to save me instead." "I decided to give you what?" "Your father gave my mother a chance." "By lying about who you were." Ghost was quiet for a long moment. Outside, the sounds of the town continued. Wagons rolling, dogs barking, life moving forward while hers stood still. "Would you have trusted me if you knew I was the judge's son?" Sierra considered this. The honest answer tasted bitter. "No." "Then you understand why I stayed quiet." She looked at him sitting below, her on the steps. The expensive clothes made sense now. The educated speech, the easy confidence with authority. "What else haven't you told me?" I went to law school in Boston. Practiced for 2 years before I came back west. Why did you come back? To confront my father about the things he's done. The people he's hurt. Ghost stood and walked to the window. The sun had set, leaving the sky purple and gold. Judge Ravencrest takes money from men like Pete Morrison. He destroys evidence, fixes cases, all to maintain his position and power. And you're his son, unfortunately. Sierra joined him at the window. The street below bustled with evening activity. People heading home to families, to lives built on honest foundations. What do you want from me? Nothing. Everyone wants something. Ghost turned to face her. In the dying light, his scars seemed deeper. His eyes held the weight of old grief. I wanted to free you because my mother never got to be truly free. She lived her whole life afraid, dependent on a man who saw her as property. And now I want you to have what she never did. Real choices. Your own name on your own land. Sierra studied his face. The resemblance to the judge was clear now that she knew to look for it. Same bone structure. Same steady gaze. But where the judge's eyes held coldness, Ghost's burned with quiet fire. You could have told me. Yes, you should have told me. Yes, his simple acceptance of blame stirred something unexpected in her chest. She had known men who lied and men who made excuses. But Ghost just stood in his truth and let her decide what to do with it. I don't know if I can trust you. I understand. I don't know if I can forgive you. I understand that too. Sierra walked back to the stairs. Her decision crystallized as she moved. I'm going to get a room at the hotel. Figure out my next step. All right, don't follow me. I won't. She paused at the top of the stairs. Tobias. It was the first time she had used his real name. He looked up at her. Thank you for saving me. Even if it was for the wrong reasons. There are no wrong reasons for doing right. Sierra left him standing in the courthouse hallway. She walked down the main street as lamps began to flicker in windows. The hotel was a modest building with clean rooms and decent food. She paid for a week's stay with money from the sale of her mother's wedding ring. The room was small but private. A window overlooked the street where Ghost had given her freedom. She sat on the narrow bed and pulled out the ranch deed. 20 acres of land with her name written in careful script. A gift from a man who had lied to her about everything except the things that mattered most. Outside her window, the town settled into evening routines. Sierra thought about choices and debts and the tangled web of obligation that bound people together across years and miles. Her father had saved a Cherokee woman's life. That woman's son had saved hers. The debt that connected them stretched across time and tragedy. But debts could be chains or they could be bridges. The choice was always in how you carried them. Sierra folded the deed and placed it in her traveling bag. Tomorrow she would decide whether to claim the ranch or sell it and disappear into the vast territory beyond. Tonight she would sit by her window and watch the street where a mysterious cowboy had given her the most precious gift imaginable. The right to choose her own tomorrow. 3 days passed before the knock came at Sierra's hotel room door. She had spent the time walking the town's dusty streets, thinking about futures and pasts and the weight of choices. The knock was urgent, desperate. She opened the door to find a young boy with dirt-streaked cheeks and frightened eyes. Miss Blackwood, you need to come quick. They got him. Who? The man who helped you, Ghost. They arrested him this morning. Sierra's blood turned cold. She grabbed her coat and followed the boy into the street. The jail sat behind the courthouse like a stone tumor. Bars covered small windows. Iron doors that let in no light. Sierra had heard stories about men who disappeared into territorial jails and never came out. Deputy Marshal Kane stood outside the building, his badge catching morning sunlight. He was young and nervous, the kind of man who followed orders without asking questions. I want to see the prisoner, Sierra said. No visitors. On whose authority? Kane shifted his weight. Judge's orders, of course. Judge Ravencrest protecting his reputation by silencing his inconvenient son. What are the charges? Disturbing the peace. Interfering with legal proceedings. Made-up charges. Paper chains designed to hold Ghost until more permanent solutions could be arranged. Sierra walked around the jail building. The stone walls were thick, solid, but every fortress had weak points. That evening she returned with food and clean clothes. The night deputy was older, softer around the edges. Just want to bring the prisoner some dinner, she said. The deputy looked at the covered basket. His stomach growled audibly, against regulations. Sierra placed a silver dollar on his desk. Seems like the Christian thing to do. The coin disappeared into the deputy's pocket. He led her through iron doors into the cell block. Ghost sat on a narrow cot. In the last cell, someone had beaten him. His lip was split and one eye was swollen shut. But he looked up when he heard her footsteps. You shouldn't be here. Neither should you. The deputy unlocked the cell door and stepped back. Sierra entered. With the basket. 5 minutes, the deputy said. Ghost struggled to sit upright. Sierra knelt beside the cot and examined his injuries. Nothing broken, but he would carry new scars. Who did this? Doesn't matter. She unpacked the basket. Bread, cheese, clean water. Ghost ate slowly, his movements careful. They're planning to transfer me tomorrow, he said quietly. Where? Doesn't matter where. I won't arrive. The words hit Sierra like ice water. They planned to kill him during transport. Make it look like an escape attempt. There has to be something we can do. Ghost looked at her with his one good eye. Even beaten and caged, he carried himself with quiet dignity. Don't be clever. Not now. He managed a small smile despite his split lip. There might be a way, but it would require you to trust me one more time. I'm listening. Ghost leaned closer. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. There's a leather portfolio hidden in my hotel room. Room 12 at the Cattleman's Rest, under the loose floorboard beside the window. What's in it? Evidence, letters, financial records, proof of my father's corruption going back 10 years. Sierra's heart hammered against her ribs. If that evidence comes to light, it would destroy him. And everyone connected to him, including Pete Morrison and the Crane brothers. Why haven't you used it before? Ghost was quiet for a moment. The jail cell felt smaller than a grave. Because he's still my father. The deputy's footsteps echoed in the corridor. Time's up, he called. Sierra stood to leave. Ghost caught her hand. If you do this, there's no going back. My father has powerful friends. They'll come after you. Let them come. Sierra. She looked down at him. Even beaten and imprisoned, his eyes held that quiet strength that had first drawn her attention. I know what I'm choosing. The Cattleman's Rest sat on the wrong side of town, where cowboys and drifters paid by the night. Sierra climbed the stairs to room 12 as midnight chimed from the courthouse clock. The door was unlocked. Ghost's few belongings lay scattered on the narrow bed. Someone had searched the room already, but found nothing. Sierra knelt beside the window and pried up floorboards with her knife. The third board lifted to reveal a hiding place carved into the supporting beam. The leather portfolio was thick with documents. Sierra opened it by lamplight and began to read. Letters between Judge Ravencrest and known criminals. Bank records showing unexplained deposits. Legal documents with forged signatures. A web of corruption, stretching across 3 counties. At the bottom of the portfolio lay a separate envelope marked for Sierra in Ghost's careful handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Her father's original debt resolution, signed and witnessed 6 years ago. The document that proved her freedom. Ghost had found it. Kept it safe, given her the choice of when and how to use it. Sierra folded the paper and placed it in her coat pocket. Then she gathered the rest of the evidence and walked back into the kofa. Night. Dawn was breaking over the territorial capital when Sierra knocked on Attorney Harrison's door. He answered in his nightshirt, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Miss Blackwood, what's wrong?" "I have something you need to see." Harrison's parlor filled with morning light as Sierra spread the documents across his desk. The attorney's face grew grave as he read. "This is explosive. Where did you get it?" "Does it matter?" Harrison continued reading. His hands shook as he turned pages. "This implicates half the territorial government. Judges, marshals, politicians. Can you use it? Use it?" Harrison looked up at her. "Miss Blackwood, this evidence could bring down the entire corrupt network. But it would also put you in tremendous danger." Sierra thought of Ghost sitting in that jail cell, beaten and waiting for death. Some things are worth the danger. "They'll kill you for this. They'll try." Harrison stood and paced to his window. The town was waking up. People heading to work. To lives built on the assumption that law meant justice. "There's a federal marshal arriving on today's stage. If we can get this evidence to him before the local authorities know what's happening." "How long do we have?" Harrison checked his pocket watch. "Stage arrives at noon. But word travels fast in a small town. Then we'd better move quickly." Sierra gathered the documents. Outside, the sun climbed higher, burning off the morning mist. The day that would change everything had begun. At the jail, Ghost sat in his cell and listened to the sounds of a town waking up. Today they would transfer him. Today he would disappear into the vast territory and never be seen again, unless Sierra had found his hidden portfolio. Unless she had chosen to trust him one final time. The iron door clanged open. Footsteps approached his cell. "Time to go," Deputy Kane said. Ghost stood slowly. Through the small window, he could see the courthouse clock tower, 11:30. The federal stage would arrive in 30 minutes. Time enough for justice, or time enough to die. The choice, as always, belonged to someone else. The federal stage arrived at noon with dust, clouds, and the thunder of hooves. Marshal William Crawford stepped down, his silver badge catching sunlight. He was older than the local lawman, with gray whiskers and eyes that had seen too much corruption to be surprised by more. Sierra met him at the stage depot with Attorney Harrison beside her. The leather portfolio felt heavy in her hands. "Marshal Crawford, I have evidence of territorial corruption that requires federal attention." Crawford looked at the young black woman with interest. In his experience, the most damning evidence often came from unexpected sources. "What kind of evidence?" Sierra opened the portfolio. Crawford's expression grew serious as he examined the documents. "Judge Ravencrest," he murmured. "I've had suspicions about his court for years." "There's more," Harrison said. "Financial records, correspondence with known criminals. A pattern of corruption going back a decade." Crawford closed the portfolio and looked around the busy street. "We need somewhere private to discuss this. Too many ears in a place this size." They moved to Harrison's office. Crawford spread the documents across the desk like a general planning a campaign. "This is enough to bring down half the territorial government. But moving against a sitting judge requires careful preparation." "How long?" Sierra asked. "Normally?" "Weeks, maybe months. We don't have weeks. They're transferring a prisoner today. He'll be killed during transport." Crawford looked up sharply. "What prisoner?" "Tobias Ravencrest, the judge's son." Understanding dawned in the marshal's weathered face. "The judge is eliminating witnesses, along with anyone who threatens his position." Crawford stood and buckled on his gun belt. "Then we move now." The courthouse square filled with spectators as word spread that federal authorities were arresting Judge Ravencrest. Sierra watched from Harrison's window as Crawford and two deputy marshals climbed the courthouse steps. The arrest was swift and professional. Judge Ravencrest emerged in handcuffs, his silver hair disheveled, his judicial robes replaced by a prisoner's rough clothes. He looked smaller without his courtroom authority. His eyes found Sira in the crowd. Even at a distance, she could feel his hatred burning across the square. Deputy Kane led Ghost from the jail in shackles. His face was still swollen from the beating, but he walked upright, proud. When Crawford ordered the shackles removed, Ghost rubbed his wrists and nodded his thanks. The crowd dispersed slowly. Some looked disappointed that there would be no transport killing to witness. Others seemed relieved that justice had finally come to their corrupt town. Sira waited in Harrison's office until the excitement died down. When Ghost finally appeared in the doorway, she felt something inside her. "Chest loosen and settle. You found the portfolio," he said. "I found more than that." She pulled the folded paper from her coat pocket. Her father's debt resolution, signed and witnessed 6 years ago. Ghost smiled despite his split lip. "You were free all along. We both were. We just didn't know it yet." They walked out into the afternoon sunlight. The territorial capital looked different now. Cleaner somehow, as if corruption had been a visible stain washed away by federal justice. "What happens now?" Sira asked. "Trials, testimony, a lot of powerful men going to prison." "And after that?" Ghost was quiet for a moment. They walked past the hotel where Sira had spent 3 days deciding whether to trust him again. "I'm giving up my legal practice. Too much of my father's influence in it. What will you do?" "I was thinking about horse training. Honest work with honest animals." Sira smiled. It was the first genuine smile she had felt in days. "I was thinking about opening a dress shop. Somewhere people judge you by your work, not your past." They reached the edge of town where the road branched toward different futures. Ghost's horse waited at the hitching post, saddled and ready for travel. "Will you claim the ranch?" he asked. "Maybe, or maybe I'll sell it and start fresh somewhere else." "Your choice." "Yes, my choice." Ghost swung into the saddle. The afternoon light caught the silver threads in his dark hair. "If you ever need anything, I know where to find you." He rode away toward the broken country beyond town. Sira watched until he disappeared into the heat shimmer on the horizon. 6 months later, Sira's dress shop occupied a corner building on the main street of Silver Creek, 200 miles from Copper Ridge. The sign above the door read "Blackwood Fine Tailoring" in gold letters. She specialized in riding clothes for ranch women and wedding dresses for frontier brides. Her reputation for quality work had spread across 3 counties. The bell above her door chimed on a warm spring afternoon. Sira looked up from her sewing machine to see Ghost standing in the doorway, hat in hand. He looked different, healthier. The haunted expression had faded from his eyes. "I was in the area," he said. "Thought I'd stop by. Business or pleasure? Little of both. I've got a wild Mustang that needs gentling. Wondered if you might be interested in helping." Sira set down her work. Through the shop window, she could see a beautiful black stallion tied to the hitching post. "I don't know anything about training horses. I could teach you, if you wanted to learn." "What would I get out of it?" Ghost's smile was warm as summer. "Rain, a partner, someone to share the work." Sira walked to the window and studied the stallion. The horse was magnificent, untamed but not broken, full of potential waiting to be unlocked. She thought about choices and second chances and the long road that had brought her to this moment. "I thought you'd never ask," she said. They worked together that afternoon in the corral behind her shop. Ghost showed her how to approach the stallion with patience and respect, how to earn trust instead of demanding submission. The horse gradually accepted their presence. By evening, he was taking oats from Sira's open palm. As the sun set over Silver Creek, Sierra and Ghost sat on the corral fence watching the stallion graze. The work had brought them closer together, their shoulders touching in comfortable silence. "No regrets?" Ghost asked. Sierra looked at her shop with its painted sign. At the horse she was learning to train. At the man beside her who had given her the gift of choice, not a one. The future stretched ahead of them like open country, full of possibilities, full of promise. And for the first time in her life, Serafina Blackwood was exactly where she chose to be. And that is all to the story, for now. Please let me know where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will create a story there. Consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. And if you enjoy our content, click this video on your screen. I promise you, it's worth watching. See you tomorrow.